Hi everyone, and welcome to our webinar today, What You Need to Know About Glassdoor's Best Places to Work 2017. We're really excited to have you join us today. Thank you all for taking some time out of your afternoon, and thanks for joining us around the world, really. On the next slide, I'm going to talk about a few webinar tips to just get us started. So you can go ahead and connect, make sure you can hear us through your microphone and speakers, or else dial in. All background noise will be limited. We're going to keep you on mute to kind of avoid some of that. And as always, we want to keep today as interactive as possible. So feel free to type in any questions into the question pane, and we'll get to as many of those as possible at the very end of our session. And now I'm going to pass things on over. Quickly, we're going to talk about a hashtag. We want to be social. So use the hashtag GDChat if you'd like to kind of follow along on Twitter. And now I'm going to go ahead and pass things on over to Lisa Holden. She is our Employer Communications Manager at Glassdoor, and she'll be leading this webinar. So on over to you, Lisa.
Thanks, Shay. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Like Shay mentioned, my job is Employer Communications at Glassdoor, and what that means is that I sit in the Corporate Affairs Department with the rest of the Corporate Communications team to share Glassdoor's external message and also explain how Glassdoor can be useful to the employers who use our site. And so that both is in the products that we sell and the lists that we come out with annually. Our biggest list being the Best Places to Work Employees' Choice Awards here at Glassdoor. So I spend a lot of my time on the phone having conversations about this list and explaining to employers what they need to know about it and how to get on it. So without further ado, let's dive right in and talk about that. So Glassdoor's mission is to help people everywhere find a job and company they love. And we do that through workplace transparency. We offer the ability for anyone to share ratings and reviews about what it's like to work at their company, their current company or past company. And we believe that that truly helps people get a better understanding of what different companies are like and helps them make better decisions about where to work. Now, the Best Places to Work awards have always been set with the intention to acknowledge the best of the best and set an example for other companies focused on improving or establishing a winning culture at their own organizations. So the Best Places to Work awards have been around since we started back in 2008, and they've really been an opportunity for us to highlight some of the companies that really get it right when it comes to employee satisfaction. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And before we get too into the weeds, I do want to remind everyone that, the goal at your organization shouldn't be to make this list and check that box. The goal should be to be a fantastic place to work. And that will come through in the reviews on Glassdoor. And that is ultimately how you make this list. So everything I'm going to talk about today is around what this list is, what our methodology is, how we go about putting it together, but more importantly, some of the traits of the winners and how they really embody being these wonderful places to work that their employees can really get behind and share feedback on Glassdoor. So just keep in mind that at the end of the day, your Glassdoor profile is only as good as your company. And so this is about making your company great, which will come through in the reviews, and that's how you end up on a list like this. So this is a little snapshot of our 2016 list, and you can see that we have a couple categories here. And so we have large, SMB, and UK, and along with a few other countries. And I'd like to note, too, that these can change year to year. So just something to keep in mind. When I talk about methodology, I'm referring to the Best Places to Work 2016 list. So with regards to that list, U.S. large companies needed at least 75 Glassdoor-approved reviews. SMBs needed at least 25, and Canada and UK needed at least 25. And so keep in mind here that the methodology does change year on year, and it's not something that we publish in advance of the list, and that's to prevent gaming. But what I'm trying to get at by showing you this slide and the methodology of last year is that we need to set a baseline criteria for people, for employers to have at least a certain number of reviews in order for us to really compare apples to apples. And so beyond that, once we set that baseline, which really takes care of the number 2 factor here, the quantity factor, we also assess quality and consistency of the reviews that we get. And we do that through our proprietary algorithm. So I'm happy to take questions on this, but please note that there's only so much detail I can share around this proprietary algorithm, which is, again, to prevent gaming. But essentially what we do is once we set that baseline criteria, we collect data from all those companies that have the baseline number of reviews, and then we push them through this algorithm that assesses the quality of the reviews, both in the quantitative data, the ratings that we have, and the qualitative data. So it'll actually look at the quality and consistency of what people have said about working at these various organizations. So just to dispel some common myths, a lot of people wonder if they need to be in tech to be on the list, but that's actually not true. We've seen a small portion of this list is tech companies, and the rest are from lots of different industries: finance, retail, food service. And so it really isn't about being a cool hip tech company. It's about being the best version of whatever company you are in whatever industry you're in. The next is that you need to be a large company on the list, which is also not true. We have a large and SMB list here in the U.S., and as we gather more data internationally, we look for ways to expand that. And finally, people come to me and they ask, if I don't have extravagant perks, how can I possibly make this list? That's actually not the case. I'll get into detail of this a little bit more, but we've done some economic research on companies that make this list, and we actually find that it's not the ones with funky perks like, you know, the ability to bring your dog to work or something. It's the ones that really stand head and shoulders above the rest when it comes to things like culture. So as you're thinking about if your company can really make it, you know, never fear. You have everything it takes to be a winner. So going into a few of the traits of the winners, when we gather this list, we spend a lot of time looking at what these companies have in common, and we look for themes and trends that we can share with the media and also that we can share with employers such as yourself who are looking for ways to improve. So the first trait I'll share is that organizations on this list tend to have a mission to believe in. And I don't just mean they have a mission stated on the website that we can find as our little Glassdoor researchers. I mean that it shows up in the ratings and reviews that this company has a mission that people actually rally behind, they get excited about. A great example of this is if you go on Glassdoor and check out REI. This is a company where the mission actually comes up in the reviews all the time, and people talk about being inspired to work for an organization that has the same ideals as them, which can really motivate employees a lot more than cash or crazy perks. And the second trait is to invest in your culture. We know that 82% of leaders believe company culture gives them a competitive advantage, and that shows up over and over among winners on this list. Take Eventbrite, for example, which is an awesome company here in San Francisco, close by us. And they do a wonderful job with culture, and it shows up not only in the company's culture rating on Glassdoor, which happens to be very high, but in the ratings and reviews themselves. Here's an example of a review where someone has talked about, it's challenging to be growing fast at this organization, but because the company has an incredible focus on culture, it makes it all worth it. The next trait is to put people first. We got a study from the Global Human Capital Trends at Deloitte, and they found that high-performing companies spend 1.5 to 2 times more on leadership than other companies and reap results that are 3 or 4 times the level of their competitors. So when we think about that, what does put people first mean? Well, it means that people feel like they're empowered to do their job and that the work they do matters. And a great example of that is at Twitter, another San Francisco company, where people talk in the reviews about feeling empowered to make decisions. And this can be really important as you think about who's actually building your company. I mean, it's often said that great people don't build great companies, they hire great people, and those people build great companies. So it really is the collective here. And if you can embrace that and find ways to empower people within your organization to shine, that can really make a tremendous impact on your employee satisfaction overall, your culture, and ultimately your employer brand. The fourth trait is to embrace transparency and listen to your employees. I love the example of Venterra Realty, and if you look on this company's page on Glassdoor, you'll see that the company responds to nearly all of the reviews that they get on Glassdoor. And that's because Venterra Realty realizes that it's not about being a perfect company. No one's actually looking for the perfect company. They're looking for the perfect fit. And so if you can be transparent about what's working, what isn't, and really own your individual employer brand and message, you're head and shoulders above the rest when it comes to being a company that people can really trust. And trust is such an important factor for employee satisfaction. I think this is true in elements outside of the workplace. You know, whether it's your boss or your friend group or your family, if you trust that leaves space for problems to arise and that to be okay, because you have a sense of understanding about what's okay and what's not okay, and what anyone is working on making better. And so when you think about how to apply this at your own organization, just look for ways to be a bit more transparent or realistic about what's going on and what you're doing to fix it. The fifth trait is that it's not all about pay. So we know that salary matters in deciding on the job, but it's not what keeps employees there. So this is that economic research I was talking about. Our chief economist earlier this year did a study where he basically looked at all of the workplace factors that we account for on Glassdoor, that we have quantitative data behind. So we asked people about various workplace factors such as culture and values, career opportunities, senior leadership, work-life balance, compensation benefits, and business outlook. And he was able to take those factors individually and compare them to overall employee satisfaction, which is also a factor we collect on Glassdoor. And what he found was that compensation and benefits is not the main driver of employee satisfaction. It's not as correlated as you might expect it to be. But what rose to the top were culture, opportunities, and leadership. These are the factors that are most closely tied to employee satisfaction. So as you're thinking about ways to improve your employee satisfaction at your own organization, look for ways to invest in culture, opportunities, and leadership training rather than just giving people more money. I also want to point to a study he did, which was really fascinating, where he took the entire list of any company that had ever won Glassdoor's Best Places to Work awards, and he took all the public companies from that group, and he compared them to the S&P 500. And he found that they actually outperformed the S&P by 122%, meaning that company culture and employee satisfaction really has an effect on your ultimate bottom line, which can be a real great data point to share with your leadership as you're trying to fight for more budget or more resources for culture and values, leadership, and career opportunities, like I mentioned on the previous slide. And just as an additional data point, he also found that the lowest rated companies on Glassdoor actually underperformed the S&P by almost 30%. So really showing both sides of this coin here, that employee satisfaction, good for business. Employee dissatisfaction, bad for business. So what you can do now to set yourself in the best position to be considered for Glassdoor's Best Places to Work Awards. Now, just as a reminder, there's no application process for this. There's no submission form, there's no payment or anything like that. We simply collect the reviews we see on Glassdoor and determine the winners. So the headline here is that the only thing you can do to set your company up in the best position to be considered is encourage employee feedback on Glassdoor. Now, I realize a lot of you are going to want to pay really close attention to the reviews that you're encouraging. So these tips are designed to help you do that. First, look at the quantity and content of your reviews. Have you gotten fresh reviews this year, or are most of them stagnant from last year? You need a certain number of reviews in a given 12-month period, so I would definitely encourage employees to post reviews on Glassdoor and read those reviews. See if you can identify trends, key things that are working, things that need to be improved, and monitor that employee sentiment to see what you can do to really start to make a difference here. And then once you have a sense of that sentiment, make sure that you respond to reviews. We know that 62% of Glassdoor users agree that their perception of a company improves after seeing an employer respond to a review. And so that means that we didn't even ask them what the response was. We didn't clarify that. We just said, if they respond, does your perception improve? And people said yes. So this isn't about having the perfect response or the perfect communications plan. This is about showing that you're engaged. And so when someone leaves a review that's positive, say thank you. When someone leaves a review that gives you insight into something that could be improved, say thank you again and further it by explaining what you're going to do to work to fix the problem. That can go such a long way when it comes to employee satisfaction. I think it's also important here to implement a feedback loop. So use the reviews that you're seeing on Glassdoor to inform those new programs and new efforts to make things better. And we do that here at Glassdoor. We look for ways to get feedback not only from our existing employee base, but our candidates and our new hires. One of the first things we do when people join the organization is we ask them to leave a review of their interview experience so we can understand how to make that better. Another thing we do is we have team leaders encourage reviews on Glassdoor and encourage feedback by department. And that can work really well because you want to feel like you're getting a personal message from your organization that your voice matters. And so if you do that by department, you're able to break down the message a little bit more and make it more personal. And that also goes for responding to reviews by department. The more specific you can get, the better. So, for example, if an accountant leaves a review of what it's like to work at your company, consider having the CFO respond to that review with a bit more insight than perhaps the CEO or the head of HR could share. Our next tip is to rally behind mission and goals. So make sure you're making it very clear how employees can contribute to the overall mission and provide insights into key business objectives to help them get there. And as you revisit goals regularly, make sure that those goals are always mapping back to the company's overall mission and vision, which allows people to kind of be pointing to the same mountaintop and working towards the same goals. We found an Aberdeen study that rang very true for a message that we talk about every day, which is that companies with employee engagement programs achieve 26% greater year-over-year increase in annual company revenue. So that means just engaging your employees, again, benefits your bottom line. This is another great data point to take to your senior leadership and say, guys, we need to focus on this. This is going to help us win in our marketplace. And also, don't forget to celebrate what makes your culture great. Find ways to give back to your employees in the form of wellness programs and have conversations in town hall meetings and team offsites, and really look for ways to make employees feel comfortable sharing their voice. And of course, acknowledge milestones, work anniversaries, promotions. Each thing that you're seeing here in the bottom list about acknowledging milestones, these are all great opportunities to encourage people to leave fresh feedback on Glassdoor. So any individual can only leave one review per annual year on Glassdoor, but milestones are a great time to encourage them to leave a new one. So every year on their work anniversary, encourage your employees to leave a fresh review on Glassdoor. So key takeaways. I want to remind you that, again, the only thing you can do to set your company in the best position to be considered is encourage employee feedback on Glassdoor. So if you're doing that, you're in a good spot. Next, be clear on what makes your culture unique and celebrate it and respond to reviews about it. And finally, you should consistently analyze your reputation and culture in order to build an effective engagement campaign and fight for that engagement campaign at your organization because it's so important. Now, I intentionally left plenty of time for questions, so hopefully we have a few good ones. Shay, are you still on the line with questions?
Yes, I am. Thanks so much, Lisa. Great information. So we have a couple questions regarding what constitutes a large versus small company.
Of course. So Glassdoor defines large as companies with 1,000 or more employees, and anything below that, so less than 1,000, is considered our SMB group. Now, this is in alignment with the methodology as it was released last year, and as I mentioned, methodology does change year to year, so it is possible that if Glassdoor had more data from companies of various sizes this year, that we could adjust those to account for, let's say, small, medium, and large, or something like that.
Great. This next question, we know you probably can't answer very directly, but we'll give it a shot. Can we expect Best Places to Work list to expand into additional international markets and countries in 2017?
So great question, and the answer, of course, is that I can't share too much about this until the list is announced, but we have extended the list in years past. So the first time we did a UK list, I think, was two or 3 years ago, and we've since expanded into Canada and France and Germany for some of our other lists. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the list continue to expand internationally.
Perfect. Do you need a certain tier of account with Glassdoor to have reviews submitted on your company? Is there a basic or premium? Do you have to be a paying client to make the list? Can you share a little information around that?
Oh, wonderful question. I want to give you a kiss, whoever said that, because I didn't mention it, and I should have, which was that you do not need to be a customer of Glassdoor to be on this list. About half of the companies that win the Employees' Choice Awards are not customers. So as long as you have a free employer account on Glassdoor, you can monitor and respond to Glassdoor feedback, but you do not need to be a paying customer in any capacity whatsoever. So encourage employees to share reviews on Glassdoor for free and log in with your free employer account in order to monitor them. That's all you have to do.
Perfect. There's a couple questions around if you can share, timelines at all, when the list would go live, how long people have to kind of engage with their employees to get some reviews. Do you have any deadlines or timelines that you're able to share?
Sure. Well, not for this year, but I can say that in years past, I've been with Glassdoor for 4 years now. This will be my 5th Best Places to Work. And every year that I've been here, the list is announced in December. And typically the data collection period goes from about the first week in November of the year prior to the first week in November of the current year. So I can't share precise dates around that, but that should give you a sense of timeline here.
Fabulous. So we know that you kind of slice and dice the list based on location. Within the United States, do you award best companies within particular areas? So, best companies in the DC metropolitan area, or is it just the whole US and the whole UK?
Well, the Employees' Choice Awards, the list of the best places to work, we do not slice and dice to that level. However, Glassdoor has a very robust data program, and we're constantly looking at our data and slicing and dicing it for various markets. So we post lists on the blog all the time about the best places to work in a certain area or of a certain company size, or within a certain industry. We do that on the blog, and we'll also do it for members of the press. So occasionally we'll get a call from a reporter who's looking to highlight maybe the best cloud computing companies, and so we will pull a custom data report on that. So for the purposes of Best Places to Work, no, but for lots of other purposes, yes. So again, the best way to get in any of those lists is to, of course, encourage employee feedback on Glassdoor.
Perfect. And this next question I would be happy to take from one of my favorites, Matthew Jeffrey at SAP. Are there future plans to hold big events to launch the list, maybe dinners, etc.? Yes, we do have plans for this. So typically in years past, what we have done is a Best Places to Work roadshow where we'll go to a couple different cities in the UK, and we'll have some speakers there that from companies that made the list, and they'll kind of share some of their insights as to what cool strategies they've been working at their company and what they think kind of helps them make the list this year. So look for more information regarding that. That will likely be in the new year. So stay tuned for more info on some future events, but we do have a ton of campaigns and some cool stuff planned. So we will share more info on that a little bit later in the year. Here's a good question, Lisa. Are employee reviews evaluated or weighted differently based on any criteria, maybe including whether or not they're from a former or current employee?
So great question, actually. We accept reviews from both current and former employees on Glassdoor, and we will accept a review from a former employee up to 5 years after they've left the organization on Glassdoor. For the purposes of this list, we get a little more specific about that. Because the list is announced annually, we're really trying to get a sense of how this company has been over the past year. So we accept current employee reviews and recently former. So former within about a year of leaving the organization. So that's the subset of data that we're looking at for each company, current and recently former employee reviews.
Fab. Okay, Holly wants to know, where can we access previous year's lists? Are they on the Glassdoor website?
They sure are. So if you just search Glassdoor Best Places to Work, you will end up on our awards page, and you will see the current 2016 Best Places to Work list. And there's actually a drop-down menu on the right side of your screen that will allow you to see previous years of the list.
Fantastic. Okay, I think we are going to wrap right there. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to tweet at us. You'll get a follow-up email with a couple different assets, including this recording if you want to share it. We'll include some other stuff about Best Places to Work, and there may be an ebook as well. So you should get that within about 24 hours. With that, we'll give you back 2 to 3 minutes of your day. Thanks so much, Lisa. Such an informative webinar. We know this is such a hot topic, so as always, if anyone on the line has any questions at all, please feel free to reach out. We're happy to field those questions to the right people. So thanks again for joining us, and we hope to see you on another Glassdoor webinar. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Take care.